After hearing some news, I'm now convinced that J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, they are fighting with each other. J.D. Vance believes that Pete Hegseth is lying. Pete Hegseth believes what he's doing is serving Donald Trump the best way possible. Obviously, that was Pete Hegseth's goal, purpose from day one, especially when it comes to Iran war, to please Donald Trump, because he knows that he could be fired by Donald Trump just like Pam Bondi got fired. So he's worried, he's panicking all the time and trying to, in the process, please Donald Trump to keep his job. Why am I saying that J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth, they're fighting? Well, that is something I'll explain in a second. But before I do that, just to remind you, if you're not subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing because it helps with the YouTube censorship that I'm going through at the moment. I want to take you listen at this Fox News report before I tell you how Vance is fighting with Pete Hegseth. Take a listen.
Well, Trace, I think it's important to remember at the top of the hour we were reporting on an intelligence, latest intelligence that suggests that nearly half of Iran's ballistic missile stockpile have, in fact, survived despite the 11,000-plus strikes that the U.S. military and U.S. Air Force and Israelis have carried out. It really is quite a miracle that more planes have not encountered even mechanical failure over Iran, given the number of flights and the number of strikes that have taken place. You'll remember there were 3 F-15Es that were shot down through friendly fire at the start of the conflict by an overzealous Kuwaiti pilot who mistook them for incoming. But those pilots survived. They managed to eject safely. Well, Trace, I think it's important to remember
right off the bat, you have heard from Fox News the truth, and that is Iran's stockpile, they survived for the most part. Even the United States carried out 11,000 strikes. How much each strike cost them to the U.S. military, to Donald Trump? Well, hundreds and thousands, if not millions. What was the result? What was the end game? Iran retains most of its missile stockpile. Take a listen.
Meanwhile, in the Mideast, the Strait of Hormuz remains under threat of Iranian missiles and mines. The GCC Gulf countries are leading an effort at the UN to find a resolution to force the strait open, but that resolution, I'm told, will not be ready until next week. Fox News has also learned that at least 12 MQ-9 Reaper drones, each worth $30 million, have been shot down by Iranian missiles since the war began, meaning the Iranians still can threaten U.S. warplanes. News reports quoting U.S. intelligence indicating half of Iran's ballistic missile launchers have yet to be destroyed is not completely accurate, according to our reporting, though we are told by 2 well-placed sources that what is true is that nearly half of Iran's ballistic missile stockpile remains intact. The U.S. and Israel
half of the stockpile remains intact. At the same time, how many MQ Reaper drone got shot down, got destroyed? Each cost them how much? 30 million? I think it's even more than that. But can you imagine the disproportionate cost, expense? This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. One hand, United States is spending and destroying their own weaponries by firing at them, because once you shoot at the enemy target, that weapon is gone, whether it hits it or not. 11,000 of those weapons were shot at Iran. What was the outcome? Literally nothing. Literally nothing. So J.D. Vance does have reason to panic and to tell Pete Hegseth, hey, stop lying to Donald Trump, because if you don't stop lying to Donald Trump will not know the whole truth. Now, this is what is coming on the Atlantic News. This is from Breaking Point. Take a listen to what they're saying.
And they say the Pentagon may not be telling Trump the full picture about the war. Now, I don't think you really need a reporter to tell you that part, but the rest of it is interesting. They say Vice President Vance is worried about what the U.S. is running low on weapons. In closed-door meetings, J.D. Vance has repeatedly questioned the Defense Department's depiction of the war in Iran and whether the Pentagon has understated what appears to be the drastic depletion of U.S. missile stockpiles. Two senior administration officials told us the vice president has queried the accuracy of the information the Pentagon has provided about the war, has expressed concern about the availability of certain missile systems in discussion with President Trump. The consequences of a dramatic drawdown in its reserves are potentially dire. U.S. forces would have to draw from these same stockpiles to defend Taiwan against China, South Korea against North Korea, and Europe against Russia. Both Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, and General Kane have publicly said U.S. weapon stockpiles are robust and portrayed the damage to Iranian forces as drastic. Vance's advisors, who spoke with us on the condition of anonymity, told us the vice president has presented his concerns as his own rather than accusing Hegseth or Kane of misleading the president. Vance is trying, they said, to avoid making this personal or to create divisions in Trump's war cabinet. Some of his confidants believe, however, that Hegseth's portrayal has been so positive as to be misleading. In a statement, he said that the Pentagon chief is doing a great job and cited his work with Trump to ensure a warrior ethos. White House officials said he asked a lot of probing questions about strategic planning, as do all members of the president's national security team. I think
so. Basically, right now there is a crack in the Trump administration just over Iran war on how much United States is spending in this war and who is telling the truth and who is lying, who is misleading, who is gaslighting the public. Just on this part, there is a big crack opening up. And Atlantic said it right, that Pentagon is not telling Donald Trump everything. There one main reason you have to understand, because Pentagon, U.S. military, to an extent, is run by Mossad propaganda. Mossad may not be willing to have Pentagon briefing Donald Trump on each situation, or it could be the other way around, that Mossad was directly feeding information to Donald Trump, telling him all the lies, while avoiding Pentagon, because Pentagon might not listen to Mossad, but Donald Trump will for sure, because of his connection with Jeffrey Epstein files. I mean, this whole thing is so confusing and so misleading for Donald Trump administration. They do not know what is happening really on the ground. I am pretty sure that Israel would make all the effort in order to stop Donald Trump from withdrawing from this Iran war. They will not let Donald Trump do that. And right now, Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, they are fighting because J.D. Vance is thinking about his future run as the president of the country. On the other hand, Pete Hegseth is just so desperate trying to save his job. And I'm thinking he's convincing Dane Kane to say a few things that would fit Pete Hegseth's interest, that would serve Pete Hegseth. I'm thinking, I'm not sure, because I believe Dan Kane is a tough guy, but you never know what is going on between these two. Guys, this is unbelievable development that are coming at the moment. I want you to take a listen a little bit more.
That about sums up the whole thing, don't you? Is you've got somebody who's got a concern here about the war, but you can't say, hey, sir, they're lying to you, because they are. That's very obvious. So, you know, you got to play the game and you got to do, oh, well, actually, he's a great guy, but, you know, maybe he's got bad information, right? It's like, no, like the information's just bad. The problem, and I already know this is based on no inside info, but this is just my own theory, is Trump loves Hegseth. That's why Hegseth is out on the Why do you think he does these bullshit press conferences about how we're taking it to the enemy and, you know, the warrior ethos and everybody loves President Trump and it's decisive leadership and we're winning? Why do you think that they do that, right? They do it for his consumption. Trump loves it and he berates the press. What did he say?
He loves it. He loves Pete Hegseth putting in a good word for Donald Trump, showing how powerful the United States military is. Trump loves it. Trump loves strength. Whether it is true or false doesn't really matter. When J.D. Vance was supposed to be going to Pakistan, United States officials said, yes, he's going. They confirmed it. Do you know who did not confirm that? Donald Trump. He said, my son-in-law, obviously did not say my son-in-law, but he said Kushner and Witkoff is going to head back to Pakistan. Even though United States officials repeatedly said, no, J.D. Vance will lead the delegation and Kushner and Steve Witkoff will follow him. So it looks like to me J.D. Vance is really not pleasing Donald Trump's ego as much as these other Mossad agents, starting with Pete Hegseth and obviously Kushner and Witkoff. But this is something absolute disaster for Donald Trump administration. I'll give you more updates. Subscribe for more videos.